Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. I love doing that. When I do individual coaching calls, I do that. Like I'll call them up and say, "Hey, it's Bill Hawthorn for Flipping Houses for Rookies," and everybody starts laughing. Episode number 178. Guest realtor Dave Bolduc has put his armor on and has come into the liar's pen. Gets interrogated by pro investor Bill Hawthorn.
I got thick skin. You got thick skin. I'm ready.
So before we do the description, where's Peter?
Yeah, so I guess he's gotten a little bit of trouble driving down the street and had to go visit someone.
Yeah, he had a traffic violation, had to go to court. I didn't ask him if it was a DWI, though. Was he out partying too much?
Hopefully not.
Was he playing a guitar in some bar somewhere and he got sloshed?
Yeah, let's hope not. But
we'll have to interrogate him later.
Absolutely.
He even texted this morning. We have some building we're supposed to look at this afternoon, and he's like, "I don't even know if I can make it there yet." I'm like, "What?"
Ooh, sounds like a big one then.
Oh,
He's gonna
man.
be busy for a while.
He's got guns a-blazing or something. It must be a big size ticket for him to give up all this money.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. The description. If you have listened to at least a few of my podcasts, you know and you have heard my uncensored opinion on the failing realtor system.
Yes.
But, truth be told, I use and need realtors when doing some of my deals. So I needed to seek out the best of the best to work with. So today I'm going to interrogate, and I use that word very lovingly, going to interrogate Dave Bolduc on how he helps his sellers and investors to sell quickly and make the most amount possible. And you do a very good job at it, which we're going to talk about. So Dave has an abundance of experience because he's learned real estate through the investing portion first.
Yes,
right?
Yes, that's correct.
Then you became a realtor, which we'll talk about in a minute, which means when he does your deal, he has firsthand experience and a wealth of hands-on knowledge to help the sellers get it done quickly and efficiently. Right, which we're going to talk about that too.
Yes.
What you will get with this podcast will really surprise you beyond what most people think. You know, it's kind of common, Dave, you know this, that people kind of willy-nilly hire realtors.
Yes, so it is a fact that a large portion of people, when they decide they want to buy or sell, they go with the first realtor they talk to.
Right. And often it's not even that. I mean, I've met so many people. It's like, oh, well, my brother's wife does it.
Yes.
You know, or I know someone at church that does it. And that's like enough for them.
Yeah, I definitely, I hope we get to that because I do want to talk about that. I do want to talk about some things you want to be asking your realtor or potential realtors. And it's good, you know, I'm a realtor. I want you to work with me, obviously. But, you know, it's good to ask a few questions and talk to a few people because people have different styles,
right? And
the style of one realtor may not fit with your style, so it's good to match up.
Or not only your style, but your situation, like whatever situation you're in. I mean, one thing that I talk about a lot on the podcast is that realtors bring money. You know, that's their number one thing. They find a buyer and bring money.
Yes,
but sometimes money's not the solution for everything.
That is true.
You know
sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's I got to move quickly. And you got to be able to adjust to that and bring the right person to the table.
Right. Good. So let's just start off with you just kind of giving us a little bit of a rundown of how you ended up here at the podcast.
Sure. So full disclosure, I am a coaching client with Bill as well. And the way my story happened is my wife and I, when I was working in industry, decided we wanted to own some rentals. We ended up with becoming accidental landlords with my wife's house in Brantford, and it worked out very well. And we ended up deciding we wanted to branch out, get like multifamily, something like that. We found one in North Haven, a 2-family, purchased it, rented out, and we're making good money on it. Very happy with it. And then
hang on, I don't want to skim over that because I worked in industry. You were management.
Yeah, I was director at a large medical device
job.
Manufacturing company.
Yeah,
Yes.
so which meant a lot of stress, and you had like a lot of people working for you, right?
Yeah, at one point I had over 1,000 people working for me, and then my most recent job was about 50.
Yeah,
engineers. Yeah.
So time was not like on your side.
No. I mean, very busy. I mean, certainly, I'd come home. There'd be calls at night around the world type of thing, so there was a lot of stuff going on. Weekends were typically free,
right?
Unless I had to travel. Sometimes I traveled on Sunday and, came back on Friday type of a thing.
Right. So you bought this 2-family.
So bought the 2-family, did a little bit of renovation, about $15,000 worth of renovation, nothing major. And then rented it out and it worked really well for us. And so during that same time, we were looking at different ways to learn more about investing. And we went with a couple of different well-known national training and coaching groups. I won't mention names that really don't deliver anything. They're more of a, how can I get you to pay me more money type of thing. And then we came across Bill. And, the one thing I can certainly say about you is you're here, you're in the same market as I am, you know what's going on. And one of the if I have a question on something, if I don't know how to do something, I call you up, you tell me exactly how to do it, we move on. Right. So, and you, how many houses have you come looked at with me?
Oh yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
So, and then we ended up buying a couple houses and renovating them. And through that process, I realized that there was another revenue stream that I could pick up, which was to be a realtor. So as you said, when you flip a house, you want to get it on the market and get it sold as quickly as possible. And in real estate, the big thing is exposure, getting it to as many people as possible so someone comes and buys it. And a good way to do that is with a realtor. So I picked up my license and was, when I was renovating houses, I was, listing them and selling them myself. And then through all this, I realized that, the stuff going on at work, the versus what I really enjoy doing, which is the real estate stuff, I decided, I'm just going to go full time, became a full-time realtor, and I still do some renovations and still do some buy and holds on the side as well.
Right. So how much of your deals that you did actually help? This is not even one of the questions on the thing. It's just an ad hoc question. But how much of your experience with your own deals help you with your sellers?
So it's huge because I've been in their shoes multiple times, where I'm the one listing the house to sell it. And certainly, just like any other seller, I want to get the biggest or the highest price that I can.
Right.
But just because you want a certain price doesn't mean that's the price you're going to get.
Right.
And you have to decide when you look at this house after renovating it, does it look good from the curb? You got the curb appeal, and is something that someone's going to enjoy when they come in and say, yes, this is a house that I want.
Right.
And you got to make decisions on finishes, things like that. So having had to go through that myself with a lot, full disclosure, a lot of that's my wife. She's got the eye for that.
Right.
But being able to make those decisions and then know how much things cost, it helps me to say, look, this is something that's really simple, really quick, really inexpensive, and it gets you to the point where you're going to be able to have a buyer come in, enjoy it, and like the house and want to buy it.
Right. So that's really cool. But what I don't want to have confused here is that you don't work just for investors. I mean,
yes.
you definitely are good at that. I know I send anybody in my coaching group or anybody, I send them your way because you're really good with that. But you have a full-blown, like, abundant real estate
yes.
business where you're helping people. So one of the things that we've talked about in past podcasts, which is, I talk about the don't deal with the real estate mob, right? Which is episode number 90, if you want to go listen to it. And what I explained in there is that most realtors don't realize that they just need to bring the buyer to the table. That's what you're trained to do, right?
Yes.
Is to find and just get a deposit, get it under contract, get it over to Legal Beagles, their closing agent or the attorney, whatever it is. And then you're kind of like done. But that's not true, because that's what they teach you in realtor school, correct?
Actually, it's in realtor school. They teach you the laws and the regulations that you have to follow, and then they teach you some general things. But most of the actual how you do a deal, you learn from your broker or from someone else doing the actual deals.
Right.
But yes, it is true that the primary function of the realtor is to get the word out through marketing to get people to find a buyer so that you can sell the house. But then there's a lot of shepherding that happens afterward to get the deal done. So
that's what I want to talk about. Yeah. That's where I'm leading into. So the difference between an exceptional, unbelievable, like, oh my God, realtor, which is a very low percentage. Very low percentage. I'll say that. You won't, but I will, because you won't talk against your fellow realtors. And actually just finding a buyer is huge.
Yes.
So what happens is there's things like, negotiating skills and sales talk and, looking ahead and knowing what step is next, right? Now you're part of my coaching program, so you can get a complete reality of what I'm saying here. What is my favorite saying? Just do your next step.
Yes.
Right. So we always look at the next step. Might be 30 steps ahead of us, and we might be on step number 2. But if you just concentrate and obsess on the next step, that will unfold where step 3 will be and where step 4 will be, because as you do each step, something else unfolds, right?
Yes.
So what happens, I find, is the difference between an exceptional realtor and a non-exceptional realtor is knowing the process or the steps of the sale. And you having been through that yourself with your own money on the line.
Exactly, yes.
You know what those steps are. So your exception to the rule, as we call it in marketing, is the unique selling proposition. What makes you unique from other realtors is that you know what the next step is. You can say, go up to the stop sign and take a right, but watch out, there's a pothole there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a big part of my day. Yes.
Right. And you're like babysit the deals.
Yes. Yeah, so I've spent the last year documenting that.
Right.
So I have checklists and all that for just that reason, because you get 3, 4, 5 deals going or more, and you can lose track of things very quickly. So that's having a system in place that enables me to know exactly where I am and what's coming next is huge.
So I'm reading between the lines here, because I just got a concept that you're going to teach other realtors how to do this. Possibly.
I would love to, but not quite. I want to make sure I've got everything refined.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'll be behind that when you do that if you need help. You understand that, because I would love to be part of that program. Okay. All right. So that's important when you're. So one of the things that I talk about, which is not on, I kind of gave you an idea of some of the questions, so I don't just kind of like sideswipe you, but I'm throwing some extras in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I talk about is when you're going to hire a realtor. Mm-hmm. One of my key questions is, how many deals have you closed on in the last 12 months? Now, not how many deals you have, because you know because you've read books, that there's a lot of books out there that teach you, well, just get a bunch of listings and something will happen. Kind of like, throwing some crap against the wall and see what happens.
Yes.
Right? So the difference between asking the question, you know how I am with my questions. I'm very specific with my words. So one of the questions is, how many deals have you closed on in the last 12 months? And this is the reason why, because a person like yourself that consults, right, the seller through the process will have more deals done than the one that doesn't, because as well as I do, every microsecond of a deal, there's an opportunity for it to blow up.
Fall apart, yeah.
Because it's, you go all the way right up to the closing table.
Yes.
Money's on the table, and it'll start to slide it across, and it's like, oops, wait a minute, I forgot what about that foundation problem?
I have stories of exactly that, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, not foundation, but other things, yes.
Yeah. So it's just amazing, which, by the way, is a lot of the reason why I don't show up at my closings, because I found that when I showed up at my closings, no offense to anybody, but I was the one that got raped. Because I was the one with the deepest checkbook or the biggest check at the end of the deal. So everybody was trying to gnaw onto my check, get extra appliances or windows or, whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of all right. So this is a big question for my coaching clients.
Okay.
But I also realized when you and I were going to interview one another, I realized that I get a lot of it in the house when I'm talking to people in the house, right? So how do you actually figure out what a house is worth? and not just like a cursory view, but like some details of what you do. What do you look at, and how do you figure that out? Because it's like you said, it's an opinion base.
Yes.
Right. So you could have one number, another realtor can have another number, and they could have logistic reasons why that number is what it is.
Yes. So the first thing I'll say is there's several large websites, home search websites that give you automated valuations, and I'm not going to mention the names of those sites. You can probably list them off very quickly.
They begin with a Z.
Potentially. So I can do the same thing that they can do. What they do is they look at a bunch of solds and in the marketplace in the general area, but they also sometimes can take into account larger regions, and they don't necessarily know the specifics. Real estate is very local.
Right.
So
those are algorithms, right?
Yeah,
so
it's a computer program.
An algorithm is a program that
Yes.
does it a certain way each time, and it's all mathematical.
Yes, and it's been documented where those estimates can be as much as 20 or 30 or even more % off.
Right.
And the reason for that typically is some local scenario or reason that methodology just doesn't pick up.
Right.
So I one of the ways that I can do valuations is I can just do a quick search on the internet and on the MLS, and with my knowledge of the area, give you a rough estimate. That's one way.
Right. So we do that in our coaching group.
Yes.
We type it into Google, and we look at Zillow and RealQuest and Redfin, and we just when we say we, I mean and I show my clients how to do this, and we just take an average.
Yep.
Or we use realestateabc.com, which is kind of the same thing, except it has a spreadsheet that will tell you the specific addresses that it's using, so that you can go look at them and sort them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and you know this because this happens at the end of the day, before the money passes, I always 100% of the time call Dave and say,
Yep.
okay, Dave, it's time. What is it worth?
Yep.
So what do you do at that point that's different?
So what and any realtor is going to do most of this, right? They're going to go on the MLS, and they're going to pull recent solds. They're going to look 200 square feet, more or less. So it's a 1,500 square foot house, 13 to 1,700.
Okay.
They're going, or something like that.
Yep.
They're going to look within at most a mile. Sometimes, I try to keep it as close as I can.
So that's important what you're saying, because is it a mile the way the crow flies, or is it a mile the way you know what I mean? Because
so I draw a circle around it a mile.
Okay, on the map.
Yes.
So it's as the crow flies.
Yep.
Okay, good.
And so I try to, if I can get enough comps, enough comparables within a quarter mile or a half mile, I'll do that. I would prefer to stay as close to that house as possible, because, like I said, real estate is very local. So you could be driving down any street or any town, and one street the values are X, and then the next street down the values are Y, and it could be for many different reasons.
Yeah,
it could be for many different reasons. It could be there's an industrial area next to that other street, or there's a parklands, or it could be the lots are more level or less level. It could be city water versus septic, or not septic, city water versus well. Could be a lot of different reasons why. It could be just the quality and the size of the homes in the area.
Totally.
So there's a lot of
styles
reasons for
of
that.
houses.
Yep.
So pardon my French, because me, I'm not always exactly polite, but a comp orgasm is like right on the same street.
Yes.
Like 3 or 4 houses down, same bedrooms, same bathrooms, 2-car garage, whatever. That's the ultimate comp orgasm. It's like, oh my God, this is the best.
And then the final thing that's really, really important is how recently that other house sold.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you're looking at a house that's next door and it's the exact same house, but it sold 5 years ago, it's not a good comp, because the real estate market could have changed dramatically during that time. If it sold 2 months ago, then that's a completely different story, and that's a really good comp.
Right. Good. So anything else you do?
So I will also look on the tax record to see if there's anything that's different in the tax record versus what the MLS or the internet is telling, other sources in the will tell me. We also have some other software that we can run that has valuations as well, and it also gives more information around the house itself and the local area. So those are more double checks to make sure everything's good. And then the final thing that I like to do is
hang on. I got to stop you. Hang on. Sorry. So I know that we use a formula. I do. I think you do too. What the tax assessor says the house is appraised for. So what I do is I take that number, say it's 180,000, and then I divide it by 0.70, right?
What it's assessed at, yeah, and then that'll give you the appraisal,
and that'll give you the market value.
Well, it'll give you the appraised value. It's not necessarily market.
I was just going to say it'll give you the market value according to what the assessor thinks, and that's kind of a skewed number. But they're trying. I mean, if they could tax you. I mean, they're trying to run parallel. Some states and some cities do it with the sale price, the market value. But in Connecticut, we don't do that.
So yeah, Connecticut, what they do is every 10 years they'll do an on-site, and then the 5-year middle, they do like a paperwork version of it.
Right.
And what they get an appraised value, and then they take 70, like you said, 70% of that. That's the assessed value. That's what you get taxed on, that assessed value. So, and I've personally had my house revalued and totally disagreed with it, and I brought comps to the table and I said, here I'm a realtor, here's exactly what I'm seeing out there, and they said, nope, that's what we're saying it's worth.
Right. So I want to get the formula, because it's the assessed value divided by 7.0. If you do times 7.0, you'll get a percentage. It's divided by.
Right. If you have the assessed value, which you can see on most sites, you divide that by 0.7 or 70%. Divide that by 0.7. That gives you the appraised value the town is saying it's worth.
Don't want to. So I want to make sure you get that. So if it's $100,000, you do 100,000, hit the divide button, 0.70, hit the equals button, and it'll give you the retail number. Not the other way, because a lot of people, if you do 100,000 times 0.70, right?
Then you're at 70,000.
Then you're at 70,000.
Yeah,
so just make sure you do it the right way.
Yeah. So the appraised value is always going to be higher than the assessed value.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. Good. So, so I know that you also do. I'm still stuck on this appraisal thing because that's a big thing for a lot of people.
Yes.
Right. So I know that you do because, well, first of all, let's clear up some language here. What's a CMA? Because realtors talk about that all the time.
It's comparative market analysis.
Comparable market analysis. So that's an actual report.
Yes.
Right? It's not just here's the number.
Right. Yeah, so it's in the MLS, you can run a CMA and it will generate a report. You can pick pages and reports that you want in it. As a realtor, you can do that, and then I provide those to my clients, or not clients, but people that I'm pitching to say, hey, I would like to sell your house. And then we go through that, and it shows everything from the houses that have recently sold that I used as comparables, all the information about those houses, pictures of those houses, the write-up for the house, the stats for the house, and then dollars per square foot and all that. And then at the end, it says, based on all this information and based on this map with all these houses on it, I think your house is worth, and then I put
it in. So you just gave us the key to the vault.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, MLS is the multiple listing service, which all realtors use. Every county has their own, but they're all tied together nationally.
So there's many different MLSs out there across the country. Connecticut, I think, has 2. I might be lying about that.
They just merged.
Yeah. So but yes, you can go. I, as a realtor in Connecticut, go anywhere in Connecticut and do deals. And I have access to all the information in Connecticut.
So going back to how you started, it's very local.
Yes.
MLSs are very local. It's not some national type of thing. They're all connected somehow, because there's a national multiple listing service, right? But you use the local one.
Yes, I use the local one. I don't know how connected the other ones are, so I can't speak to that, but I can definitely say that we use the one we use in Connecticut. Smart MLS is the one we use around here, and it's got all the information that we need.
Good. So you just gave us a jewel that is absolutely, I think, spectacular. So if you arrive in a house with a CMA, it's a printed version of your comparable.
Yes.
Okay. So if you were to, if I was a seller and I wanted to shop you, right, which you don't want, but it happens.
Absolutely.
Right. What I would do if I was a seller, which I am a lot, is I would have everybody bring a CMA because there's pictures of the houses that you're comparing and addresses.
Yes.
So what you would do is you would compare those CMAs, like your CMA to the other person's CMA, because there are realtors out there that will take a broader band and capture a neighborhood that has a higher number and come in and the house is really worth 180, but they'll pitch you that it's worth 230. Okay, so you're not going to say that, but I'm going to say that because I've seen it happen, right?
Okay.
So it's important that you look at what the comparables are and that what you say is correct, that they're as close to the chest as possible and that they're the same houses and the same types of houses. And you could do that yourself by just looking at the CMA reports that the realtor is supplying.
Yes. Yes. That is definitely a question that I would ask any realtor. If you're a seller looking to sell your house, and you're talking to several realtors, I would definitely ask them for, if they should automatically give you, but you definitely ask them for a CMA and so you can see what they're looking at.
Because there are some realtors, and again, you're not going to say this because you're not going to speak against your fellow comadres or whatever you want to call them, right? There are some realtors that will come in and pitch you at a higher price, and then within weeks, usually within 4 weeks, will tell you need to drop the price $10,000. Right, and the common thing is well, if you're in the $190,000 range, the search will only show up this many people. Mm-hmm. Where if you were in the $180,000 range, it'll show up more people. And there's this whole little pitch that realtors use, right? So it could be common that a realtor can come in at a higher number to try to get the listing because they're taught to get a lot of listings on the MLS, which, by the way, I guess there's really nothing wrong with it. It is a strategy. But the one thing that I like about you is that you like money.
Yes, I do.
And I'm not.
I will admit to that.
Yeah, you like money. So you want to close. If you go out and you talk to somebody, you're going to be extremely real on what the number is. And if somebody is like, if you're at 160 for a comp and they're at 180 and they won't sell for less than 180, from what I know of you, your integrity will probably not let you do that deal. You're going to really struggle with yourself to like put that on the MLS or list it for the 180. You're going to say multiple times to the seller, I don't know, this is not right, this doesn't feel good, or whatever. You're going and if you do it, not that you're going to like work against them, but they're going to know like 15 times like you're overpricing this.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had that experience, and typically what I do is I show them the data. I'm a very data-driven person. Right. I show them the data. They're sellers. It's an emotional thing. People have a connection to the house that they're in. They love their house, and unfortunately, no one else has that connection. So the emotional value that the seller puts on isn't there anywhere else. It's just a market value. So I show them that, and when I come across a situation where someone wants a higher price, I tell them up front. I tell them, I say, look, this is what it's going to sell for. If you want me to list for that, we're not going to get showings. We're not going to get offers. Or if we do, they're going to be lower. And at the end of the day, you're going to end up selling for less.
Right.
So what would you like to do? And at the end of the day, I allow my clients, they have the final choice. I don't allow it. They have the final choice.
Of course.
If it gets to be ridiculous, I agree. I have walked away from deals.
Yeah.
If we're close, I tell them, look, we can try that, but I'm telling you, we're going to end up having to lower the price.
Right.
And I discuss the ramifications of that as well.
So, and this is very important to listen to what he's saying, because in the real estate investing arena, there's a cancer that we don't talk about. It's called holding cost. Mm-hmm. Right? Which means every day, every week, every month, you had that house with somebody not renting it and not like doing a deal, not closing on it. It's costing you something. Mm-hmm. And you're completely and utterly aware of holding costs, because
Yes.
we've had some deals like that were like, yuck, right?
Yes.
And matter of fact, which was, I think, one of the reasons why you made some of your decisions, because a couple of those deals came through because you sold it as a realtor and you were able to put those fees in and turn the deal around because you had that extra profit center,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm getting at here is that what people don't realize when they pick that higher number is if they hold it, even if they're living in it, it's costing them money.
There's opportunity cost. There's opportunity cost in terms of taxes, insurance, continued mortgage payments, which a big portion of mortgage payments are typically interest, so you're not getting anything there. Wear and tear. And then there's opportunity
loss
cost.
of the market.
Yeah,
loss of the market because the market changes. Like
Yes.
we all know spring's the best time, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, December's not the best time. Or actually, January's not the best time.
So I have some data on that as well. Some interesting. We can talk about
Give
that.
it to me.
So I did do some analysis of percentages of houses sold versus what was on the market.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a lag, right? So typically it takes 45 to 60 days. It's kind of a round number from when you go under contract to when you sell. So, but that's included in all the numbers, right? So it washes out.
It's relative.
If you look over the year, the percentage houses that closed versus that are on the market stays relatively consistent. There's a little bit of a drop in January and February, but beyond that, actually in May of 2019 versus December of 2018, the percentage sold was basically the same. It was 19.6 versus 19.7.
Okay, so what you're saying is that even though in the springtime there's 500 houses on the market, it's 19%. Where in December there might be 200 houses on the market, it's still 19%.
Yes, exactly. The number of people selling in November, December, January, February is lower.
Right.
The number of people looking is also lower. But in general, the amount that sell is pretty consistent.
So you guys got to listen to this. I'm going to probably embarrass you right now, but I think you got thick skin. So you have to understand, guys, that Dave actually hired me as a coach and paid me lots of money, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get him out of the damn spreadsheets.
And where am I?
Yeah. So I got to tell you, it took me a few months to get him out from behind his computer. I got to tell you, he gave me some of the most confounded analysis of deals that I have ever saw. They were awesome.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah, but we didn't get the deals. We didn't get the deals done because we waited too long for the offer. So he's very, very, very good with these analysis and numbers and that. And now you have a good balance because you're out there and you're doing deals and you kind of came through that. But that's where you were when we first started, right?
Yes, we did.
You were buried. You were in deep, man.
Yeah, I would have spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet for one house, and it was what'd you call it? You call it mental masturbation, right?
Yes, that's right.
I spend so much time on gathering every single piece of
Dave, did you
information.
talk to the guy? Well, no, I'm going to call him. Dave, did you talk to the guy? No, I got to call him. Dave,
Guilty.
Call the guy.
Guilty.
Anyways, that was good. So, all right. So when you're looking at a house, right, you do the walkthrough, which you and I, because we were working together for a while, so I know you and I have done a lot of houses.
Yes.
Not a lot, not a tremendous amount, but enough that we know, right? Because that's a big thing, like when you walk through the house, right? So as an investor, you walk through houses that are not pretty. They're kind of
very often, yes.
Where at least when people want to list, there's a better chance of it being at least they clean up. At least they try to pick up. When we go as investors, they don't even do that, right? So when you're looking at a house and trying to sell it for someone, what type of things do you look for when you're in the house that would excel or enhance the sale? Like, because I know, I've had realtors in the past, especially with my renovations. They come in and I'll just spend $40,000, and then they have a list of things that I should do to make their job easier, right? And although that's fine, because I understand that you want to get to the commission, right? There's a fine line there. Like, does this really need to be done to enhance the price? Because that's how I look at it. As an investor, I look at, okay, so if I'm going to spend $3,000 to do what you're asking me, how does it affect the price, and how does it affect what's my rate of return? Right. But a seller may not think that.
No, sellers and investors approach the sale of a house very, very differently. And you just covered basically what I was going to say from an investor perspective.
Sorry.
That's fine. It's just it kind of validates it, right? You as an investor, you're looking at what can I get for every dollar that I put in? Is it worth it, or am I wasting money?
Right.
As a seller who owns a house and occupant, there's emotional connections, like I mentioned earlier, that make the house seem more valuable to them.
Well, that happens with investors too, especially the first couple deals. They spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And mostly, I'm being so chauvinistic. I'm going to get support tickets, but it usually happens to the women. They watch these reality shows and they pick the colors, and it's like this whole thing that doesn't really need to happen.
But I think with experience, that dies off, right?
Absolutely. After a couple houses, that definitely dies off. Yeah.
So for a lot of people, the sale or purchase of a house is one of the biggest things they'll ever do, and they don't do it all that often.
That's right.
So they do get those emotional attachments, especially if they've raised a family there, they had a major event there, whatever.
Right.
So sellers, when they're thinking about their house, they think about it with rose glasses. Like they look through
right. So I want to
just
make a comment here. I know I keep interrupting you.
That's all right.
One of the things that I've recently realized, because I've been writing articles and I do a lot of writing, that the difference between you and me comes down to this simple statement. When you're dealing with a seller, they consider the property to be an asset.
Yes.
Right? The people I'm looking for are considering the property to be a liability.
Right.
So you're an asset. They're like selling it because they have locked up equity in it. Right? Or they're trying to get their profit out. Profit and equity is the same thing, right? So they're looking to get their profit out. Okay? Me, they're looking to get relieved of.
That is true.
And I don't mean desperate, just like, like I can't stand my ex-wife anymore and I want to get rid of this house. This is the only thing that connects us. That kind of stuff. It's not always money relief, but you're dealing with it from the seller has a perspective that it's an asset.
Yep.
With me, it's a perspective that it's a liability.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So when you're talking about this kind of stuff, you're consulting them with a separate set of eyes on how much of an asset is this really?
Yes.
Right? So what are those things that you look at? I know that you started
condition.
and I interrupted
you. Yeah,
condition.
no, so condition, upgrades, and price. I call it CUP. It's just something that I've put together. So condition is what it sounds like. Are the carpets worn out? Is the hardwood floor all scratched up? Are there holes in the walls? Or the opposite? Is it brand new flooring or recently redone? Is you got fresh paint? New mechanicals versus old mechanicals. Is there air conditioning?
Mechanicals meaning the furnace,
the water heater, the well if there is one, the septic tank if there is one, electrical system. And then upgrades. Did you have 100 amp service? Do you have 200 amp service? In an area where there's no air or there's very few air conditioners in houses, do you have one? Pools, decks, all these types of things. Kitchens. Yeah. Do you have like the high end kitchen with the high end appliances, or do you have a
bathroom inside or outside?
Yes.
Outhouse or not? Yes. No.
So all those are types of things that I look at.
Right.
And you can. Curb appeal is another one that I look at. When you just drive up to the house, what's your first reaction? Does it look like an overgrown, tangled mess, or does it look very well manicured?
Right.
Does the house have peeling paint, or does it look, well taken care of?
Good.
Those things are important. Another thing is the personal property in the house, and some people get very defensive about this. I live in this house. This is my house. This is the way I want it decorated. Totally fine with that. You just can't have the buyers walking through and having to walk through a very narrow path through the room, right? I mean, you have to be able to see the space and
or
appreciate
leave your
what it looks
clips
like
on the end table.
Yes. So, I mean, some realtors say you should take down all personal pictures. Others say it doesn't matter. I'm of the school that it doesn't matter, but you shouldn't have 1,000 of them everywhere. Just kind of minimize to allow the buyer to
declutter.
Yeah, declutter and minimize to allow the buyer to be able to see themselves in the house.
Right.
Those are a few things. I'm also looking for simple, easy things to fix.
Right.
So if there's a few cracks in the driveway, can you just seal that and then, or fill those cracks in and seal it? The driveway looks 1,000 times better.
Right.
Again, that goes back to curb appeal. Those are the types of things I'm looking for.
I'm really surprised. I thought for sure you would say location has something to do with it.
So location is on the buy side. I left that out intentionally. When you buy the house, that's when you pick the location. You can't control the location when you sell.
Yeah, but doesn't it affect your price?
Absolutely affects your price.
Okay, so there
Absolutely.
is a factor in there.
I look at location. That's
Okay.
when I'm doing the comps. But when things that I talk to the client about, things that I talk to them, what they can impact or what they can do to make a difference, then you can't control location at that point.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see investors make when giving a house to you to sell? Just because, I mean, I don't want to make it all about just the seller. I mean,
Right.
we are an investor podcast, so what are some of the mistakes you see guys like me make? Even me, I'm
Yep.
sure you've seen me make mistakes.
So I'm guilty of this.
Yep.
And I've seen others as well, buying too high.
Okay.
Right? Because if you buy too high, then it dictates everything else.
Right.
You're not, if you can't get the price you want, so now you're going to start not cutting corners, but maybe not doing an upgrade that you would have wanted to do,
Right.
or a thing that would get you the better price. So that's the first one. The second
And that's
one,
easy to do because especially if you're like haven't done a deal or it's been a year and you've spent all this money on training and
Yep.
you have this total like must have or neediness that you have to like do a deal that you stretch.
Yep. Yes. And that's what I'm guilty of, right? So
wrapped up in the deal. You get wrapped up in the negotiating, and it's like, well, instead of paying 78, yeah, maybe if I pay 85, I'll be all right.
yes.
And it stings hard.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's one. Another is the asking price.
Yeah.
So again, people, like you said, even investors will get attached to a house and they'll have a number in their head, and that's what they want. You can push a little bit, but if you push too much on the price, it can have a massive impact on the amount of time you spend on the market,
Yep.
which goes back to carrying costs.
Yep.
And it can also have a massive impact on what you actually sell for, because houses that have been on the market longer typically sell for less than ones that, if you just priced it correctly.
Right. So I'm going to, again, just use my own boldness here. So to me, I'm very cautious with this because to me, that's like a one-trick pony. Right. So what it means is a one-trick pony means you come to the circus, you pay to get in, and the pony has one trick, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So with buying, fixing, and flipping, that's a one-trick pony.
One source of revenue, right?
One, right? So I like to think, and you can be very candid because I got thick skin too, but I always ask the realtor, which is you,
mm-hmm.
What do you think? And I'll tell you, well, I think it's worth $199, and you'll be like, I don't know, I think it's worth $180, and we'll talk about it. And if it's really $180, then I'll go with the $180. But at the end of the day, my product, the person I'm selling my renovation to is the realtor.
Yep.
I never, ever, ever, never, 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 ever, ever consider selling it to the buyer. I'm selling it to the realtor. Because if you get excited, you'll go do your job. You'll find the buyer, you'll find the lender, you'll find everything that I need, and you'll do that on your end. So my seller is you. So when I bring you through the house and we talk about it, it has to be something you're excited about and that
Yes.
you can get. Because at the end of the day, being completely rude, it's not all you care about, but what's on your mind is how quick can I get a commission, because you're going to work for months to get that money. So if you can shorten that time up to weeks, then you're going to want to do that. And that's just human nature. There's
That's
nothing
a reality.
wrong with that.
That's real. This is my full-time job, right? So, and any other agent that works full-time will tell you the same thing.
Right.
They're not interested in being slimy or anything like that. They want to be ethical, but at the same time, if they can move the project along, move the sale along, they're going to do it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So that's what we need to, that precedent we need to set in the beginning. As far as I'm concerned as an investor,
Mm-hmm.
I need to get you excited about my house, because if you've got 10 listings, I want you to think that you can get mine done first
Mm-hmm.
and get that commission. Right. And if I because it's not a house I'm living in, because it's vacant, there's a whole lot of advantages to you as a realtor.
Yes.
To like move that like you say, move that project along.
Yes.
Right. And especially like we just listed a house, and it's like you have no apologies for that house at all. I mean, it's got a brand new roof, it's got a brand new kitchen, 2 brand new bathrooms, a brand new furnace. Not only a furnace, the heating systems. I took all the radiators out, put brand new radiators and brand new floors. I mean, there's nothing to apologize for in that house, right? And I like those houses
Yes.
for you because
It makes it easy.
yeah,
It
and
makes
that's
it
what-
really easy.
and that's what you like. That's what any realtor wants. Is there's no apologies. There's no. It's just getting the right person in there.
Because those are the types of things that scare buyers
That's
away.
right. That's right.
You know, an old furnace, an old water, even though a water heater is not all that expensive, an old water heater, I've seen that turn off a lot of buyers. You know, a kitchen that's not quite up to date, that'll turn people off.
Right. Good. All right. So how about non-investors, right? People who are just selling a house.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you see impedes their sale the most? Now, we just talked about the clutter and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Above and beyond that.
So I have to say it again. It's price. That's the thing that causes the biggest pain point.
The expectation of price.
The expectation of the price, the desire to price it higher than what the market will carry. Connecticut,
Because of emotional value, you're saying?
emotional value.
Because of what they
so
want?
Connecticut has not fully recovered from the 2009 crash yet.
Agreed.
One of the few states that hasn't.
Agreed.
Right. I think there's a couple towns, like I think it was 10 towns out of the 169 or whatever have. The rest haven't.
Right.
So if you bought, and a lot of people have, I was in the situation, my wife was in the situation, bought in that 2007, 2009 range, you probably paid more than what you can sell it for right now.
Right.
And for that reason, a lot of people say, look, I need to get my money back. I'm not going to sell the house and pay money to get rid of it.
Right.
So they want to price it higher.
Especially if you did an FHA or CHFA
low money
mortgage.
down. Yeah.
Then
Low
it
money
takes
down.
a while for that to balance out.
Yeah, if you put down 20%, you might lose a little bit of that, but
Your
you'll
cash.
still get some money back.
Yeah.
But if you only put down 3%, or even if you say you did a VA and you didn't put down anything.
Right.
Yeah.
That's coming to haunt you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
price is the big thing.
price is the huge thing. The market dictates the price. I know everybody's got this feeling this is the most important thing. This is wonderful. I love this house, but the market dictates the price.
And just like what we tell the seller, let's bring it to the market and find out.
Yes.
You know, so you have that balancing act, which we already talked about of, you know, what's the real number, what's the inflated number, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then another thing that I've seen is ill-advised, shall we say, improvements where, you know, they weren't done well,
Right.
or something just that takes a normal house and makes it really awkward.
Right.
You know, I've seen houses where they took a 3-bedroom and took out a bunch of walls and left it as a 2-bedroom.
Right.
And you're devaluing the house when you do that.
We call that dysfunctional.
Yes.
We turn it
Yeah.
into dysfunctional.
That's another big thing that I've seen.
Right. So how about when you're looking at these properties, how about like what am I trying to say here? Let me get my thoughts together. So I guess my slang word is like opinion leaders, people that are giving them advice that don't know anything about the market. They just heard something, or, oh, the guy down the street said he sold his house for $220, so that my house must be worth that, and you're giving them a number of $190.
Yep.
Right. So influencers, we'll call them, right? Outside influencers. So how much of that do you run into?
A lot. And so there's different types of influencers. There's the dad or the cousin or the nephew or the whatever neighbor. There's also I looked on this website and it told me this is how much it's worth. You get that as well. And the only thing that I can do to counteract that is show them my performance over time.
Right.
And then what the data is telling me. And then I have to leave it at that. And I can't change that beyond that.
Right.
You have to figure out how to get those influencers on the same page, and sometimes that's a discussion with them. I've often asked, you know, hey, if you think that this person's opinion is important, then I want to be involved with the discussion with them so that we can all come to the same point.
Completely diverting from this for a quick second, I want to tell you this. I'm reading a book by Scott Adams. He's the guy that draws Dilbert.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's the cartoonist, and he's really a good writer. He just came out with a book called Loser Think, right? Or Loser Thinking, or Loser Think, something like that, right? And I was just reading the book, and he was talking about how people have filters when they think. And those filters are set by their experiences or their environment, right? And it's kind of, and people gravitate through those filters. So if somebody sees on a website that their house is worth $230, and they decide one of their filters aligns with, oh yeah, I'd like to get 230. That means I could, I only owe 150. I can get $80,000, and that filter is now set, and you're up against. That's considered loser think, by the way, right? And you're up against that filter or that decision. Oh, I can get $80,000, not taking into account, any of the closing costs or, any of that kind of stuff. They just think they're going to get 80 grand. And now you come along with a pin and pop their balloon, and some people accept it and some people don't, which comes down to what we talk about on this podcast all the time on what's their motivation.
Yes.
Right. What's the reason for selling the house? Some people are just selling a house because it's like, well, I want to make 80 grand.
Right.
Because I want to take that 80 grand and go buy another house and do something else. It's like, I don't have to move. And some of them are like, well, I have 2 mortgage payments and I can afford to go 2 more months. And you're thinking, well, it's going to take me 3 months to get the deal done. What do we do then? So there's just different things that happen.
Yes.
Right? So those filters are, from my experience, those filters are preset, and you have to either logically prove to them, which, by the way, those filters are emotional.
Yes, logic is very difficult to use to beat emotions.
Yeah, totally. All right, so most realtors use the multiple listing service, that's which we talked about already, as their only form of marketing to find their buyers. What else do you do? I know that you go above and beyond that. What are some of the other things that you'll do? And maybe not on every deal, but I know that you do some other stuff.
So a lot of it. So everybody puts a sign in the yard, right? I mean, and signs really do work well.
They're the best.
They work really well. I get a lot of calls off of signs and that end up being a buyer for something or a seller for something. But pretty much everybody does.
Let's go back to where you started this podcast off. Location. It's very local. So somebody drives by the house, They see it, they call the sign.
Yeah, I like this area. I want to live here.
Very important.
Yep. So that's something everybody does, along with putting it on the MLS. Some realtors will use social media. I use a lot of social media.
Yes.
I've seen social media posts where somebody will set up a business page and they'll put posts on there, and that's fine. That's getting the word out there. I do a lot of paid advertising to get the word out to a larger population. I do, depending on what.
Wait a minute. You're not the broker. You're the agent.
Yeah.
Who pays for the advertising?
Me.
Whoa, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, as realtors,
that's not normal.
No, realtors do pay. They do pay for a lot of stuff.
Of course.
And and
that's what my point is. I'm embellishing it that before I get paid, I've already got money in the deal. Yeah. Yes. So you've already worked on your client base and your relationship building with potential buyers before you even list.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So another thing that I do is, and this is very targeted, I'll do mailings with flyers and information to people that are likely to be interested in that type of a house.
Right.
And that's, I'm not going to get into too much detail there because a lot of that, is the special sauce type stuff.
That's right.
Another thing that I do, a lot of people do open houses. I do open houses to get the word out there. That comes with a lot of Facebook especially, but I'm working on getting into Instagram. I do a lot of videos. I put those on YouTube. I have a website.
What is it?
Say my website. Yeah. It's DaveBolducRealty.com.
Spell your last name.
BOLDUC. It's on the bottom there. So
yeah, some people will be listening to podcasts and won't be on Facebook. So spell it again.
It's Dave DAVE Bolduc BOLDUC Realty.com.
Perfect. Yeah. And those will send you to the YouTube videos.
Yes, I have links to the YouTube videos there. I also have, for all my listings, I have pages that we can get you to if you're interested in seeing any of those, and then all that.
Good. So, as an investor, meaning me, because I try not to talk. I duck from that word investor. You know that, right?
Yep.
I'm a professional home buyer. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say professional home buyer. Yep.
As an investor who has sold many houses, one of the things that I look for in a good realtor, like I talked about before, is your ability to negotiate.
Right.
Okay. So you can tell So tell us more about that negotiating stuff. Like, how do you do? What am I talking about?
So there's a lot of different places where you negotiate within a deal. It's not just at the first time where you ask for a price.
The purchase and sales.
Right. So there's a lot of things that you negotiate. So you can negotiate dates, you can negotiate personal property, you can negotiate concessions, you can negotiate price. There's all those things that you can play with.
Whoa, slow down. What's a concession?
So a concession is where the seller will give you back a certain amount of money for some reason. It's typically for prepaids.
Right.
So say usually you're going to pay your insurance up front, you're going to pay the appraisal up front, you're going to pay the home inspection up front, and you can get them to give, and then the down payment, and then the seller will give you a little bit money back at closing.
Good. So the word concession means a variance from the original.
Yes.
So a standard deal would be this way, and a concession would be an exception. Like you said, I'll pay the insurance, I'll pay the inspector, just to prompt your buyer or your seller to do something.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's because the buyer doesn't have a ton of ready cash. So whatever that reason is, they'll do that.
I got a deal that I just lost because of an attorney. Mm-hmm. We won't talk about that. I'll be ranting the rest of it. But part of the deal, the reason why I had originally got it is they need to, the grandmother lived there for 50 years and the house needed to be cleaned out. And I estimated it cost $7,500 to clean it out and do landscaping to make it approachable for you.
Right.
Well, the lawyer says, no, we don't need to do that. And they came in at $3,000. Well, yeah, $3,000 because the guy's doing it in a pickup truck and it's going to take him like a month to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Worst part is that she doesn't have the $3,000. So I don't know where the $3,000 is coming from. With me, I was going to do it the right way. Mm-hmm. I was going to, so that she could sell it quick. And this lawyer is saying, no, you should hire a realtor and you should do this and you should do that. But he's the lawyer. Mm-hmm. So he's like the opinion leader, the status opinion leader that like he's wrong because she's going to give that money back. She's going to, by the time she gets the clean out done and because we're in December now, yep. I would have been on the market already. I would have been on the market and we would probably had a deal and we'd be closing within 30 days the way I was going to do it, but not the way you're doing it. So my point is that the concessions have a lot to do with the deal.
Yes.
Has a lot to do with the deal.
And having a realtor that understands that and can
negotiate,
build those concessions appropriately so that you get, so that everybody wins, but so that you're happy and that's important.
Right. And it keeps deals together.
It does.
Deals blow up and you start talking about concessions. All right. So the first negotiation happens. I want to look at 123 Main Street. Can you show it to me? Or I've looked at it with a realtor. You're asking 190. I want to pay 130, whatever the number is.
Right. So
that's the first point of negotiation.
Yep. So typically what happens there is you write up a purchase and sale agreement. The buyer signs it. You sell it in.
After you negotiate.
Sometimes you just write it and send it.
Oh, you mean the buyer? Yes.
The
correct.
buyer. Yeah,
yes,
the buyer.
correct.
Yeah.
But at that point,
then you negotiate.
Right.
So then there's a negotiation, and assuming you come to some kind of an agreement.
Yeah.
Then the next step will be, if I'm representing the buyer, I'm always going to tell them to do a home inspection.
Okay.
There's never a variation there.
So I'm at 190. The seller's at 190. The buyer's at 130. We decide at 170.
Yep.
And you did that. So you brought them from 130 to 170.
Yep.
Right. And your skill, 1,000%, your skill is the difference between 160, 170, 180. So
yes,
the seller is totally, utterly, absolutely relying on your ability to do that.
Yes.
Because they cannot talk to the seller or to the buyer.
Right.
Right. So this is huge, folks. If you're listening to this is huge. All right. So now we write a contract, 170. What happens?
So then depending on what's in the contract, assuming there's a home inspection, which there typically will be, the home inspection will occur, and I guarantee you there will be a list. There always is. So there will be a list of items, and then it comes down to negotiating what is going to get fixed, what is going to be, are there going to be any concessions related to some things that need to be fixed, or what's not going to be dealt with at all.
So I call that bride money.
Yes.
In my coaching, I call that bride money. And my attorney said, my accountant says, you can't put that on your documents. Don't put that on your documents. So the reason why is like I had a house that just popped in my head in Wallingford, right? I did $43,000 worth of repairs. The home inspector found supposedly $16,000 worth of stuff.
Yep.
Right. I got that down to 6,300. It was not things that needed to be done. Actually, I shouldn't say that. They wanted to repoint the chimney, which means that the chimney was completely all right. It's just that they felt like the mortar in between the bricks wasn't sufficient. I don't know how that could be, but it's what it was, right?
Yeah, it happens through deterioration. Yeah.
So it cost me $3,000 for that.
Mm-hmm.
The other 3,300, I negotiated like you're talking. I didn't. The realtor did, but I used the realtor to negotiate with. It was just give backs at the closing, which is a concession, a give back.
Yes.
So I went from 16,000 to 6,300, and I didn't do that. All I did was coach the realtor at the time, which at that time wasn't you. And I don't use that realtor anymore because of that deal, because he let that happen. He let that happen, and it cost me a lot of money. So how you negotiate that, I mean, I cut you off, so once you can go back to it, but it's very, very important because it's the second negotiation.
Yes, and it's a big one. You know, it can like you said, it can make or break a deal. It can you as an investor, you can go from a profit to a loss.
Right.
In those, I've seen a deal personally where I was on the buy side, where I successfully negotiated like $11,000 credit for a roof.
Right.
You know, so you can really take a hit.
It could go both ways.
Yeah, and the one thing is a lot of people just naturally go for the middle. So if you end up in the example of the 130 and the 180, that's 50,000. So you know, end up at 155, right?
Right.
Well, that's
weak negotiation.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's just call that right out of the gate and be done with it.
Right.
So you really have to use some good negotiating skills to bring people along and get them to understand this is why the number is what it is. And I mean, you could talk for hours on this. There's a really great book called Never Split the Difference.
Yes.
And I'm drawing a blank on it. It's Chris something. I can't remember his
could you look up the book Never Split the Difference, please?
Great book. He's a former FBI hostage negotiator, and he talks about all sorts of different negotiating tactics that are very, very effective. And
the author?
Yes. Chris Voss. Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sweetheart.
So yeah, so that's you have to have a plan going. I like to have a plan going in before we even are presented with it. How do you as a seller want me to negotiate?
So now this is very important for me.
Yep.
This is crucial to me. This is the whole enchilada right now. This is what you hire. You need to know this before you sign the listing contract with you. You know, because I deal with you, I'm a hard ass dick. Pardon my French. When it comes to the first negotiation, I will not give up $100 if I can, because I know this second one, and there's another one coming after that.
Yes, there is.
Right? I know that I'm going to have to give money back. So I don't want to drop my pants, like you said, right away and do the splitsy thing.
Yeah, once you put it out there, and once you put it out there, you can't get it back. Right? It's gone.
So when we come down to repairs, it's coming down to the other realtor's ability to negotiate with my realtor.
Right.
So it's going to come down to, so sometimes I have a realtor on the other side that doesn't do a lot of deals, doesn't negotiate very well, and you'll do well with them, right? For me.
And I've had some tough negotiators as well.
Right.
I've had deals blow up on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. This is 1,000% emotional. This has nothing to do 99% of the time with the mechanics of the house. What happened was the inspector spooked the buyer. So now I have to come up with a way to make that buyer feel comfortable again to come to the closing, to sign the documents so they get their loan or whatever they got to do, which is why I call it bride money, because I'm just negotiating their touchy-feely emotions. Yeah. You know, I don't feel like like especially millennials, and I pick on millennials a lot, but like the house we're selling right now, I call it the millennial house. With Pete, I call it the millennial house because it's the type of house where they can come in, they get their mortgage, and they're going 10, maybe 15 years before they do anything, even paint.
Yep.
They could live there 10, 15 years and do absolutely nothing. Brand new roof, brand new kitchen, brand new countertops, brand new cabinets, brand new bathroom, brand new furnace, everything. They do nothing. right? So that negotiation is going to be a little bit easier than if we do it the other way.
Right. Yeah. What was popping around in the back of my mind is typically the issues that come up that are safety related. Those would be a minor. Those would be something that, like, it was a total mistake, right?
I fix those without even talk about that. Yeah.
But it's
like peeling paints, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
If I miss something, you know what I mean?
Yes. And no one's perfect. That does happen.
Yeah.
But you'll see. I've seen people want to come back and negotiate a new kitchen.
Right.
And it's like, that's no.
Yeah.
We didn't say we were going to sell a new kitchen. Right. The kitchen was what it was. So,
which is why I love you, because you just nip that right in the bud.
Yeah.
Because you won't even bring it back to me. You'll be like, no, he's not doing that.
Yeah.
And then later on you'll say to me, by the way, and then I'll be like, okay. And then now here's an amazing thing, and then we're going to get off this because we can make a whole podcast just on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's really cool is, like you say, they want a new kitchen, right? So what you're good at is, first of all, you'll say something like, so if he puts a new kitchen in, will you buy it? That's a good question that you'll ask. I know you do that, right? The other thing is, suppose they're negotiating something else.
Yeah.
You'll come back with, well, I can't do that, but how about if I put the kitchen in? Or you'll put the two of them together and make it like a package.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can play that. You were talking about repairs, but I've seen it where there's like personal property in the house, and you can't come to an agreement. You say, well, if you throw this in,
you had that trouble with my sister's
out.
house.
Yep.
I remember I found out about that later. There was something about stools or something, and she was just being a hard ass about it. She was being a real jerk about it, but I don't even know what happened, to be honest. But
we got it all resolved. But personal property is a great leverage to try to smooth things over.
Right.
And it could go either way on that. You had asked for this, but if I take it, then we can call it even, or the other way around. Right. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of, the point I want to make is there's a lot of different levers you can pull, and it's not necessarily money all the time.
That's right.
That is the solution. You hit it on the head. Maybe they want to close earlier.
Right.
And you say, look, I could fix this, but you said you want to close earlier. So which one's more important to you? So now you put it back on them, because they're creating conflicting demands.
Yep.
And you give them some choices and drive it forward.
And you're very, very good with that. I am very overt with anytime you're in my vicinity and I'm talking about you, that's what you're really good at. So what's the third negotiating point?
So the third negotiating point is the appraisal.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the appraisal will come back. I often see the appraisals come back right at or very close to the price. I have had appraisals come back below what the negotiated price was.
Right.
That happens a lot when you have the concessions, because they'll offer full asking and then give a little bit more but want that money back.
Right.
So when that happens,
so to give you an example, the house is 170. Realtor will come back and say, well, we'll give you 176, but we want $6,000 for closing costs.
Yes.
So the appraisal has to be at 176.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've seen that type of a scenario not work out that well.
Right.
So at that point, you really have a few options. The first option is the seller either pays it, the buyer pays it, or they split it, or you walk away.
Right.
And so now you gotta figure out how you change the price, right? So you have to figure out how you want to work that. And oftentimes the way to go after that is okay, well, you asked for these concessions. We need to bring that price down and reduce those concessions to make it work. But then on the buyer side, that might cause a problem, because they might have been counting on that in order to make the close
now
work.
You're negotiating with everybody, the seller, the buyer, everybody. You're in the middle.
There's a lot of stuff going on at that point, and you're close to the end, so it gets to be very emotional.
Right. And at the end of the day, you have to stay exterior to all of it to keep it moving.
Yes.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah. At the same time, you got to remember that all the other activities that are going on, keeping everybody else in the loop, and make sure that nothing else falls by the wayside while you're dealing with that one particular configuration.
So most sellers don't realize this is going to happen, that there's a negotiating when they first sign the purchase sales contract. There's a second negotiating when negotiation process when they do the inspection, and then especially if they're doing like, which is a very important point we need to bring up here. If you're selling like a first-time home buyer, like we do a lot of like in my area, it's 180,000. So you're going to have that FHA or CHFA or a government, a VA mortgage, and those people are going to be predicated by the appraisal. Because the appraisal company, the FHA guy will say either you put a railing on the stairs or we do not lend. Yeah,
and I didn't say that, and you just nailed it right on the head. FHAs, VAs, they do like a safety inspection as well. If there's peeling paint, if there's the smoke detectors aren't done correctly, railings, the one you used, they will require those safety things to be done. And there's no negotiating. I actually had a house I sold down in Fairhaven, and it was held up by peeling paint for an extended period of time. We had to negotiate to get that squared away. So
and that's important because now you're back to the seller saying it's either you do it, or you're out. So it's go find another buyer. You're gonna have the same problem. What I mean? Which, by the way, peeling paint and lead paint is not as big as everybody makes a deal. As long as you conceal it, they're good with that. They're not jerks about it. It's just that. They don't want to be in a lawsuit where a kid eats lead paint and all of a sudden there's a lawsuit and their mortgage is in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Which is really what it comes down to.
You can remove it or encapsulate it, and there's all sorts of guidelines on that and professionals that can help you with that.
So when you're hiring a realtor, you really don't know this up front, which is why I say how many deals have you closed on in the last 12 months, because that will tell you. Because almost every deal has these negotiating points in them.
Yes, and there's actually another negotiating point that will pop up from time to time, and that's on the day of closing.
Yeah.
So on the day of closing, as a buyer, you'll do a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And when you go do that walkthrough, usually you've had these other negotiations we talked about, inspection, repairs, personal property that's supposed to be gone or left behind. And I've come across multiple scenarios where a repair wasn't done properly or done at all, or something was either taken or left that shouldn't have been.
Right.
And so now you've got a situation where you are on closing day, money is about to change hands, and you got to decide: are you gonna fight for that or not fight for it?
So I know that we're way over on our time right now. But here's the deal: what you just said is unbelievable because. In this country, in the United States now, there's I forgot what it's called. I haven't talked about this in a while, but there's 3 days. So the government does the settlement statements on the mortgages. So if that adjustment, like say the refrigerator's missing and they want a $500 seller concession, it used to be you just tell the attorney and you close that day. Now what happens is that $500 adjustment has to be adjusted on the settlement statement. It has to go back to the mortgage company or the government. They have to change the settlement statement, and you have to wait 3 days.
Yeah, it's TRID.
For the closing.
I can't remember what TRID stands for, but the closing disclosures, they changed them from HUD statements to closing disclosures.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch and depending on how you negotiate, whatever you come to as an agreement can significantly impact the closing.
Right. So if you don't have the right realtor that understands this, you could easily postpone your closing by 4 or 5 days, like without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it just will just naturally gravitate to that, unless you have experience like you do, because you're an investor and you're trying to get to your money, which rightfully so, right? Then you'll figure out how you could do that closing, and there are ways that you can do that closing that day and still give the guy his $500.
Yeah, so for anyone that comes across that, the best thing that you can do is before you agree to anything, talk to your attorney and talk to your lender.
Yeah.
Right? Or if you're on the buy side, if you're on the sell side, talk to your attorney. Yeah. All right? And have your realtor's going to be involved working with them as well, but the best thing you can do is get all the professionals involved.
Talk to the closing
and
agent.
Talk through that, and so that you come up with a solution that doesn't put you in a position where you cause a problem. I guess that's the best way I can say that.
Right. Okay, so we're going to skip a bunch of questions here. Let me just decide what the last question is, and then we're going to get out of here, okay? Because we still have, anyways. Okay, so oh my goodness, these are all good questions. I'm sorry we have to skip all these. My goodness, I don't want to do this. I don't want to skip any of these questions. All right, so let's just do the last question as a bonus takeaway. What are some of the last bits of advice you have for our listeners about how you're unique and how you can sell houses better than other realtors, and how, even though we have listeners around the country, they can look for these same qualities or ask these same questions to their realtor when they're looking for someone, whether they're just a plain seller, that they're selling a house once in a lifetime, or whether they're an investor.
So, I mean, I think the question you ask about how many deals, that's a good one. Yeah. As far as what I bring to the table, certainly I have a 19-point marketing plan that I could pull out for you right now and show you. Right. It's not something made up. It's real, and I can show you real examples of every single thing that I've done on there. And that's important. A lot of you could be told, I've got this big marketing plan, but if they never use it, then are you really getting any benefit from it? Right. So make sure that you're asking for, how are you going to sell my house? I'm answering like a couple different questions here, but
that's fine.
One of the things that, so I'm a veteran. I was in the Navy. My father and my brother were firemen, and my mom was a nurse, retired nurse.
So hang on a second. Whoa! I'm sorry.
I'm changed. One thing that
I want to. You were a veteran, but you skimmed right over that. You were like how many years?
Only 5 years.
Okay, so
I went to the Naval Academy
in the Navy.
Yeah, and then 5 years in the Navy. Yep.
And you're still active, right? You still but I mean, you go to. Like you were telling me today, you still talk. I'm active with the military. Not as just as a civilian.
Yes, and so that's where I'm going with this. So I have a few connections to I'm the authorized representative for Homes for Heroes in this area.
There you go.
And Homes for Heroes is a nationwide benefit, and you have to qualify for it.
Yep.
And the way you qualify is a veteran, fire, police, EMS, medical, or teacher.
Yep.
And I didn't say that in the right order. I'm sorry, Homes for Heroes. But those people in those categories, I can provide benefits to them when they're buying or selling a house. And then the really nice thing is Homes for Heroes Foundation is a nonprofit foundation that's tied to that.
They are.
That gives back to the local communities through recommendations from people like me that are authorized providers. So what I was saying is I have a lot of connections to that. My wife is also a teacher.
Yeah.
So I think I have pretty much all of them. I think police is the only one that not in my family right now. I'll try to figure that out. But it's really important.
Probably help Pete with that this morning.
I should have. I missed the boat on that one. But the way I'm involved with it because I want to give back. I want to help out people that have done so much. So because I have those connections, I know a lot of, at least I have stories behind, the trials and tribulations that all these people that serve in these different capacities have.
Right.
And so, you just want to say thank you for that. So the Homes for Heroes benefit program is a big portion of saying thank you to those folks. So that's something that I'm involved in and really engaged in and very passionate about.
Yes.
So anybody out there that's serving in all those types of roles, thank you very much for your service, and we really appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you.
Ditto. So. Absolutely. It's amazing.
So going beyond that, I've got personal experience, because I am a veteran with VA loans, and I've also done a lot of VA loans for buyers.
Yep.
So I know that whole dance, and it's a little bit of a dance. There's some special requirements there that you got to pay attention to.
But you know that up front.
Yes, but you know that up front, it makes it a lot easier. And as you mentioned right out of the gate, I've done small multis and single family investment, flipping, buy and hold. So, I do have experience in that and can provide a lot of resources and knowledge around that as well.
And your experiences go all the way from painting a wall to never touching a house. So I mean, you've got a really good rounded investor type thing. I mean, maybe I'm just being arrogant because I don't mean to be, but there's not many people that I've invited into my office and work with me. And you and I worked together for a couple months. You know, you were actually doing some acquisition manager stuff for me. So that just tells you what I think of you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
And I appreciate that.
Not that I'm anybody any special, but you know, for you to be that close to me, and I give you my deals, and we do business all the time. So
yeah,
it's for these qualities that you're talking about that I completely trust you and encompass you. And, you know, I mean, we don't do like, you know, millions of dollars worth of business, but you're totally my go-to guy.
Oh, I appreciate that.
You know, and it's for a reason because of all these things you're talking about.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm a full-time agent. So there's nothing else. I mean, certainly I have some rental properties that I run. I do some, but I'm in real estate all day, every day. So this is my job. This is what I do, dedicated to it. And, you know, I'm working on Sundays. I'm working at midnight. It's, you know, whatever needs to be done, you need to do. You know, so and then the last thing is as a buyer, I have a secret homes list, and it's houses that are not on the market, and there's ways that I come about those homes. But they're for sale.
We call them quiet sales.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, we would still do the normal transaction, but these are people that don't have it listed yet. They're not ready for one reason or another, but they are. If they got the price that they're looking for, they would move. So
they're also called pocket listings.
Yep.
Because back in the day,
well, no, they're not. I'm not actively marketing.
Okay,
They've just told me, hey, I would be willing to sell, but you know, I'm not actively marketing right now.
Good.
So I do have a list of people that have for one reason or another I've talked to. And they said, yeah, and at some point in the future, I'm ready to sell. You know, I could move, but I'm not ready to go active right now. So you could
pluck one of those and put a buyer with one of those.
And I have brought people together. I have said, are you interested in this?
Right.
And if they're not, that's okay.
Right.
But you know, there's different ways to get that connection going. It's in real estate. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It's all about exposure, right? It's about getting the word out to as many people as possible. So the more connections you can make, and you've got to work to bring deals together sometimes.
That's right.
So it's all about having that desire and that drive to make that happen.
Good. So to end off, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, good. To end off, I'd like for you to give your contact, you know, whatever, like your website or whatever, whatever you want. But I'm gonna put you on the spot, and
sure.
You could easily say no if you don't want to. But suppose somebody had, somebody was listening to this podcast and they're from like California, and they're hiring a realtor and they had some questions about that. Would you be willing to get on the phone with them and talk to them and just maybe help them for a couple minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as they haven't signed with a realtor,
right?
Then I'm stepping on toes, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
But if they just want some general advice, hey, what would you look for in a realtor? Because I'm going to go and interview a few people. More than happy.
Or
to
even
do that.
questions about our podcast today.
Yeah, or any questions about anything that was said.
So what was you had a website or
so my website
or email
is
or whatever contact information you want to.
So I'll just give it all. My phone number is 203-464-1479. It's my direct cell.
Again.
203-464-1479.
And you could text that too, right?
Yeah, you can also text. It's my cell phone.
Yep.
My website is www.davebolduc.realty.com, and I'll spell that. It's DAVEBOLDUC Realty REALTY.com. That's my website. And then my email address is dbolduc BOLDUC @ddvhome.com, and I'll spell that. Here's a little military phonetic. Delta Victor Hotel Oscar Mike Echo.com. So that's my email
and we
address.
got Morse code going on over here. Good. So more? That's it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Dave, I really appreciate you being here, and I think that our listeners appreciate your expertise. We could probably go another hour with the questions I have. You're just a wealth of knowledge. And as I've already, I love working with you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You know, you're just a cool, level-headed guy, and you keep things going, and you are definitely always making decisions based on the greatest good for the greatest number involved. And that's a very, very cool quality. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming over here and replacing Pete. Pete's got competition. You can text him now. You got competition, Pete. He's been watching? Yeah. Okay, good. Hey, Pete. Hope everything's going okay over there.
Still sitting over there in court.
If you need bail money, let us know. We'll send it. All right, cool. So thank you again.
Appreciate you having me be here. Thank you.
And if somebody didn't get anything that Dave just said, with all his contact information, you can always go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side, hit contact us, and I will gladly pass on the information via that support ticket. All right?
Yeah.
We're over now.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.